You have heard that it was said, speaking of the Old Testament, do not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Verse 31, you've heard that it was said, anyone who divorces his wife. 32, but I'm going to tell you. Verse 33, you've heard it said long ago, not to break your oath. Verse 34, but I tell you. And so on. 38, you've heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Verse 39, but I tell you. 43, you've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you. Now, what's the point here? You find yourself saying, who in the world do you think you are? I mean, who's going to stand up and take the Bible and say, you've heard that it was said in the Bible, but I'm telling you, you know that this is what you were supposed to do, but I'm going to tell you. What was Jesus doing? He was clearly making astonishing claims about his teaching. He was putting his teaching on a par with the rest of biblical instruction. Thirdly, Jesus not only made staggering claims concerning his identity and his ability to meet the spiritual needs of others, he made astonishing claims about his teaching, and also he claimed that he would be directly involved in all the major aspects of the end of the world. John chapter 14, verse 3, he says to his disciples, I'm going to go away and prepare a place for you, but I'm going to come back. I will come back. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, so that you also may be where I am. Who is this man who stands at a moment in time, space, history, and he says, I'm going to be involved in wrapping the world up? I said, aren't you the son of Joseph the carpenter? Yeah. And you're going to be involved in wrapping the world up? Yeah. I'm going to go away and I'm going to come back. Now, is that not an immediately applicable, relevant statement in our culture? The whole world is consumed with people who've gone away and come back. Go to the average bookstore and what do you see? Book after book after book about people who had near-death experiences and came back. You want to make $1 million? Nearly die, come back and write a book. It's easy. Do you want to have one book totally avoided? This book. Say to people, say, I believe you're interested in out-of-body experiences. Aha. I believe you're interested in people who nearly died and came back. Aha. Well, what if I could introduce you to somebody who had an out-of-body experience and who didn't just nearly die, but actually died and definitely came back? Oh, yeah, please. Who is it? Jesus of Nazareth. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Square circle. Don't give me that stuff. I thought you were going to tell me about a real person who went away and came back. See the way men and women's minds are totally predisposed to error? They totally live in the realm of error so that they are prepared to believe the most unbelievable things and are at the same time unprepared to accept that which is explicit in the statements of Jesus. I'm going to go away, I'm going to come back. In John chapter 5, he says in verse 28, I am going to be involved in the judgment of the world. John 5, verse 28. Speaking of the Father, he says, and he, the Father, has given to the Son authority to judge because he is the Son of Man. Realizing that people's faces are going to be totally, their jaws are going to be hanging down in response to this, he says, don't be amazed at this. For a time is coming when all who are in their graves will hear his voice and come out. Those who have done good will rise to live, and those who have done evil will rise to be condemned. By myself I can do nothing. I judge only as I hear, and my judgment is just, for I seek not to please myself, but him who sent me. Matthew chapter 25, Jesus says, I'm going to sit on my throne, and I will put the sheep on the right, and I will put the goats on the left. When the Son of Man, Matthew 25:31, comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory, and all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, and he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. And people say to us, well, why isn't Jesus just like Buddha? Isn't Jesus just like Krishna? Isn't he just like another Hindu avatar? And the answer is no, he's not. So when we've said no, he's not, and then they say, well, how is he not? And then we start, I don't know how he's not. I just know he's not. Well, the person who has got genuine questions is not going to be prepared to put up with that nonsense. You go in there to sell software, and they say, now, is the software for this package the same as the software for that package? You say, no, it's not. They say to you, in what way is it not? And if you then can only dribble down your chin for the next 5 minutes, they have every right to throw you out of the door and get somebody who knows what they're talking about. And in the same way, we say, well, no, Jesus is not like that. Well, in what way is he not like that? Well, I don't know in what way he's not like that, but I just know that he's not, so he's not. Therefore. If he says, well, thank you very much, you don't know anything. You are an ignoramus. You are a Christian ignoramus, and you are annoying me. Don't stand there and shout in my face. Listen to my questions, and go home and do your homework till you know the answer. One of the answers is, Buddha never ever said that he was going to sit on a throne and be involved in the judgment of the world. One of the other answers is that Buddha never ever claimed to be the very one who spoke the very oracles and words of God. And so we might go on. But it takes some Sunday afternoons with a concordance. It takes some evenings with my Bible and a pencil. It takes some thinking. It takes some discovering. It takes some diligence. And all that I or a teacher might do for you is what any other reasonable teacher may do, and that is to stir within you the desire to become a student of this book. Neither I nor the cumulative effect of the leadership of church can spoon-feed the whole congregation into being able to articulate their faith. We can help, but we can't do it. It takes a lot of hard work. So Jesus then made staggering claims concerning his ability to deal with the spiritual needs of men and women. He made astonishing claims about his teaching. Thirdly, he claimed that he would be directly involved in all the major aspects of the end of the world. And fourthly, he made it clear that the reaction of men to him was an indication of their reaction to God. Now, these are all indirect claims still. John chapter 14, we've been there already. After Jesus has said that he's going away and he'll come back and receive them unto himself, Philip, who's a great guy to have in a class, because he always asks the dumb question that you were afraid to ask, and so you get the answer, but you don't have to be the dummy that asked it. Philip steps up, and in verse 8, he says of John 14, Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us. Jesus answered, don't you know me, Philip? Now just let that settle in your mind for a minute. Here's a guy, and he says, show us God, and that will be enough. Just give us a foundation for our belief. Just show us God, Jesus. And Jesus looks at him and he says, don't you know me, Philip? Now what's he saying? He's saying you've seen him. You've seen him. People say Jesus never ever claimed to be God. What is this? Go back 2 chapters to chapter 12 and verse 44. Jesus, addressing the Jews in their unbelief, preaching out of the Old Testament, showing how the Old Testament ties in with the New, speaking of Isaiah and so on. And these Pharisees, it says in verse 42, would not confess their faith for fear they would be put out of the synagogue, for they loved praise from men more than praise from God. They wanted it both ways, and they couldn't have it. And in verse 44, Jesus cried out. The word there is a graphic word. He actually just came right out from inside of him. Just an impassioned release from within him. He says, when a man believes in me, he does not believe in me only, but in the one who sent me. When he looks at me, he sees the one who sent me.
Looking at the claims of Jesus in the New Testament, both directly and indirectly, showing that Christ is, in fact, God, Alistair Begg has titled today's message, Who is Jesus? You're listening to Truth for Life. We'll continue to answer questions about the identity and purpose of Christ on tomorrow's program. And when you visit our website, you'll also have the opportunity to download this message in its entirety. Look for the title, Who is Jesus? Part 1, online at truthforlife.org. Well, this has been an exciting month at Truth for Life. You have heard us mention the need for your financial support as we close out another year of ministry, and we are greatly encouraged by the number of generous friends who've stepped forward to help us reach our year-end challenge. If you've had good intentions but haven't yet connected to make your donation, be sure to do that today. It takes only a few minutes. You can give us a call at 888-588-7884, or you can send a check by addressing your envelope to Truth for Life, P.O. Box 39, 8000, Cleveland, Ohio, 44139. Or go online to truthforlife.org. And let me say thanks for your generous end-of-the-year gift. When you give, we want to invite you to request today's featured book, which is titled 10 Questions to Diagnose Your Spiritual Health. This is the perfect time of year to take self-inventory, to begin to plan for a fresh start in 2011. This helpful test will allow you to take stock of your relationship with God and to determine some practical next steps to deepen your relationship with Him. When you give a special end-of-the-year donation, let us know you'd like a copy of the book, 10 Questions to Diagnose Your Spiritual Health. Our number again is 888-588-7884. And remember, there's still time to purchase some meaningful gifts online. When you choose Rush Shipping, they'll be under the tree by Christmas. Look for the helpful recommended resources list online at truthforlife.org/Christmas. Tuesday, we'll continue the message, Who is Jesus? With Alistair Begg and Truth for Life, where the learning is for living.